Okay, I'm hoping this is working now. We should be working now, hopefully. Is our sound working? Should be, hopefully. Make sure our sound is working, and we'll get going here soon. We got a little rough start, but we should be good now. So, excellent stuff. We are going to get started here today. What we're going to be doing is something a little different. As you can see, I've been reading this book, Asylum by William Seabrook. Very, very good book. He talks about what life was like back in the day when they didn't have rehabs and support the way that they do now. And he talks about that, and he talks about that how he got sent into a mental institute instead of a rehab, which is kind of creepy, but it's interesting. And he goes through and he says on page 129, it's merely repeating that no man is a drunkard unless he is drunk when he doesn't want to. And this is important. I'm going to go shut off the heater real quick because it's hot in here again. But this is important because of the fact that a lot of people wonder what an alcoholic really is, right? What's an alcoholic? How do you define an alcoholic? And everything like that. And what I really look at here is what is a high functioning alcoholic? How do you understand what a high functioning alcoholic is? How do you know what one is? And how do you describe it? So today what I'd like to do, I'd like to thank you for sitting through the little hiccups. We had a little rough start getting our live stream working today. But today what I want to do is I want to go through and talk to you about what it was like to be a high functioning alcoholic. Now, a lot of people think that an alcoholic is someone that's in the dump, just down and out on life, can't manage to rub two nickels together, can't keep his life together, and everything's obvious, right? They think that the alcoholic is obvious and this is going to be something that is like ding, 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 a bell goes off, and you're an alcoholic. Now, for me, this wasn't the case. For me, things were quite different. When I first started, I had a successful business for many years, about 10 years or so at that time, and made millions of dollars on the internet. Worked from home, paid all my bills, owned two houses, cars, everything. Uh, Kids went to private school. Everything seemed okay on the outside. And I was going along okay and running my own business. And around 2012 was when I noticed my alcohol creeping up. Now, I always liked to drink. I always liked alcohol. I liked the taste of alcohol. I liked the smell of it. I enjoyed beer and strong drinks and everything like that. And occasionally I would get drunk, and I never liked it, right? I never liked being drunk. I didn't like the feeling. I didn't like the stuff like that. But I did it anyway, and sometimes I would go out and drink, and it would get the better of me, and things were kind of crazy, and it's like, okay, well, what's going on here? And so I had these bouts where I would drink a little too much on occasion, and I didn't like it. And over time, when we bought our second house in 2009, things started to creep up a little bit worse. I started to kind of have things from my past start coming in through my life, past abuse, past stuff that just went on, just old stories coming into my life now and affecting me. And for some reason, it happened around 2009, and I had started drinking more and more around the clock, which, I had my own business and I work from home, so no one really monitored it. It wasn't like I went to work drunk and they were like, hey, you know what, knock it off. I actually had clients who, thought it was funny and kind of encouraged it and things like that because it was like, hey, you know what, you work from home, you could do whatever you want. And I did do whatever I wanted. I had a, beer machine in my backyard office and, drank around the clock and everything like that. And I noticed in 2012 when I was at a marketing meeting every year, I would put on two or three different marketing meetings for my students and people who like to learn the stuff that I did for a living. And I ended up at this point. And for me, it was very difficult because when I was at these marketing meetings, one, I was running them. So there was like no structure or anything. It was all me. And two, I was very anxious around people. So my clients would want to go to dinner with me, they'd want to hang out with me, and things like that. And I had this thing where I couldn't eat in front of people. I just had a very difficult time. And so, having lunch and dinner in front of people. I just had coffee for breakfast. But lunch and dinner in front of people, I never ate. So here I was consuming all this alcohol on an empty stomach, and things just went really, really bad. In 2012, I think it was November of 2012 or October or something like that, I had a fall, right? I drank so much that I fell over, and I don't even remember what happened. They had to take me back up to my room. And luckily, because we had these conventions, we got this big fancy room, and, the people kind of watched you throughout these things and, took care of you and stuff like that. But that happened, and I realized that there was some kind of problem at that point. So I decided, okay, I'm going through this stuff. I'm drinking a little too much or a lot too much. And I need to get help. So I decided that I'm going to go to a therapist, right? And I decide, all right, I'm going to go to a therapist because I think that my drinking has to do with past stuff, right? I'm drinking, I'm getting depressed, and I have all these past things creeping in. So if I could deal with this emotional stuff, then I feel like my alcohol problem would be solved, right? I mean, after all, that's what's going on. I'm drinking to cover that up, right? And a lot of people think that this is the case, that the alcoholic is drinking to cover things up. And while that might be true, right, for me, I mean, I had plenty to drink to cover up. And when I drank, I had more stuff because of my drinking that I wanted to cover up and things like that, and I didn't want to think about. And I always was the kind of person that had a racing mind. My thoughts always went. I was always coming up with ideas. When I was sad, I was really sad. When I was depressed, I was really depressed. When I was happy, I was really happy. And all these things happened, and so I was going to therapy. And therapy, I think for some people it can be good. For me, it probably wasn't the best thing because what it did is it focused me on the things that were plaguing me, right? So I had this anxiety, and then I went to therapy, and she said, you have this anxiety. You have this struggle with anxiety. And all of a sudden it had a name, and all of a sudden it had a face, and all of a sudden it was this real thing. And then we had to figure out why I had this anxiety in the first place, right? And it was like this craziness of trying to figure out why I had these certain feelings, trying to figure out why I was depressed, trying to figure out why I was anxious, trying to figure out why I was sad. And all these things started creeping up, and I was drinking around the clock to try to deal with them. And to kind of let you know what it's like inside the mind of a high-functioning alcoholic, it is literally insanity, right? You could go throughout your day and no one really knows what's going on or how bad things are except the people at home that are around you all the time. And for me, it was difficult because it sent me into serious bouts of depression. Depression to where I couldn't even go outside the door, right? And there was a quote in here in this book that I was reading, this Asylum book. Oh, there it is, right? That was really good. And he's talking about what it's like and what he defines an alcoholic as. And he says, any man's case is desperate de facto when liquor has really gotten him down. I'm inclined to believe that no man is a drunkard until he drinks, hating it in the mornings. Then he is an addict of the drug sense, of course. Mornings is an arbitrary way of putting it. It is merely repeating that no man is a drunkard until he has to drink when he doesn't want to, right? So we're looking at this and we're like, okay, what is a high functioning alcoholic? What does it look like? Well, a high functioning alcoholic is someone who drinks even when they don't want to, right? There was times in my life I would wake up in the morning and I didn't feel good, and I knew that I really didn't want to drink. I stopped enjoying the taste. I stopped enjoying drinking, but I had to. Right? It was like I was in the grips of it, and no matter what I thought, no matter what I did, no matter what therapy thing, no matter what feelings were going on, no matter what anxiety, the fact of the matter is I no longer had the choice over wanting to drink or not. I no longer had the choice of saying, yes, I'm going to not drink, or yes, I'm going to drink. I simply had to. Right? It was kind of like a matter of life or death for me in my mind and in my body. And that is part of the alcoholic insanity, is understanding that you have to drink. Right? And if you try to quit and you can't, this is what it's like. And it's like a world of insanity. It's a world of bad thoughts by your own making. And unfortunately, as a functioning alcoholic, what happens is you don't believe that 90% of your problems are in fact caused by the alcohol. Right? You might have these things like me. I said, well, in my past, as a kid, I had trauma, I had struggles, I had abuse, I had all these things. This is why I'm drinking, right? When in actuality, the reason I was the reason I had these struggles so big right now was because I was drinking, and it was all coming up and making it seem like something it wasn't, right? And like I mentioned, how I went to therapy and things like that and talked to people about this, what happened is this stuff started coming to life, and we started trying to define it. Right, so there I was going through my day, I was drinking my ass off, I was miserable, I had everything in life that I always said that I wanted: family, kids, money, house, cars, worked from home, lived the life that I wanted. But all along, it was like, okay, why did I have to drink? Right? What is wrong with me? And the problem with the functioning alcoholic or the high functioning alcoholic is that you always think something's wrong with you. Right? You're like, what is wrong with me? And you got to get to the bottom of it. And you say, well, maybe it's because of this, or maybe it's this, or maybe if I had this, or maybe, just maybe, I'm a weak ass son of a bitch who can't freaking muster up enough willpower to quit this stupid out. I mean, how hard is it to just like not have this? I can have it here, and how hard is it to just not have it? That's coffee, by the way. Right, but how hard is it to quit something? You think about it, and to everyone else in the world, it looks like the easiest thing, right? My family would say, well, just put it down. Mark, just put it down. Don't drink, right? And I would look at them as if they were crazy, saying, well, I'd like to, right? Is it not a matter of just put this thing down? Is it not a matter of just stopping? And so over and over for the 3 years in 2012, when I went to therapy to try to fix this, right, things just got completely out of hand. And therapy, on top of drinking, made things worse because it brought up thoughts, right? And when you bring up thoughts in an alcoholic and in someone who has a high-functioning mind as it is, you'll notice that what starts to happen is you start to have thoughts, and you start to define and explain the thoughts that you have. Right? So not only do you have this thought throughout the day of, I am a bad person because of X, Y, or Z. Right? I'm a bad person because I can't stop drinking. I'm a bad person because of what I do when I drink. And these things happen, and then we describe them, and we say, well, why am I a bad person? Right? And then if you add religion on top of it, which I came from a very religious background, used to be a street preacher, on top of it, you get even worse, because now it's like, I'm a bad person because of this, I'm a bad person because of this, and well, the Bible tells me I'm a bad person too. I must be just this terrible person that shouldn't deserve to live anymore. And as a functioning alcoholic, that's how I felt, right? I felt like I didn't want to live anymore, and I'm going through this time, and there's this fight. There's this fight between, I like who I am, and I do want to be alive, and this fight between, I don't like who I am, and I don't want to be alive. Right? And we look at this and we say, well, what is this dual part? What is this? Am I a split personality, or what's going on, right? And we look at this and we say, well, maybe, just maybe, there's something else going on that's deeper, right? And so I was on a mission to figure out what was going on. I was on a mission to say, okay, well, let's figure this out. Let's understand what's going on, right? Let's do this. And so I went to therapy, and I went to therapy as a genius in my own mind, right? I read books, I tried to understand these things, and I thought, wow, I'm smart. And I thought I was smarter than the therapist, and at some times I might have been, but I didn't go to therapy school, so she was probably smarter than me in that part. But what happened here is I started going to this therapy. I started to define these things, right? Why are you drinking so much? There was a hypnotherapist person that was supposed to hypnotize me out of wanting to drink and all this stuff, right? And the conclusion that I came to is that alcohol might start as a mental, psychological issue because of something in your past, but it ends as a physiological dependence on something for your well-being, right? You start to depend on this and you think you need it. So where it starts as like an obsession and everything like that, it ends because the alcohol starts to take over. So there I was going through therapy, and I had to define everything. What do I have, right? My therapist would be like, well, you're disassociative. So I go get books on dissociation. I'm going to understand what oh, that's where I am, right? And I'd see 5 clear signs of why I'm disassociative, what it is and what this is. Oh, maybe you're a narcissist. Oh, and I'd get books, and I'd define all these reasons why I had all these things. You're anxious. Let's understand this. Let's understand that. And my life became about consuming knowledge on these topics, trying to figure out what was wrong so that I could fix it. Right? My whole life was bent on fixing these certain things. How do I fix my alcoholism? How do I fix my depression? How do I fix my procrastination? How do I fix all these things? My guilt, my shame, my wanting to end my life. How do I fix this stuff? Right? And I was so bent on this, and I was going through these things, I was learning all this stuff and defining everything. So every time a thought would come up, I would define it. I'd say, well, I think this crazy thought. Oh, okay, I'm a bad person now because I thought that. Now that I'm a bad person, I need to go drink. And then I get guilt even more, and I'd wallow and I'd wallow, and everything would just get even worse. Right? I needed to drink when I was happy. I needed to drink when I was sad. I needed to drink when I was celebrating. I needed to drink when I was grieving. I needed to drink even when I didn't need to drink because I was an alcoholic, and that was it, plain and simple. So if you're the kind of person that's going through life and everything seems okay, but you know deep down that you can't stop drinking no matter what, then you need to get some help, right? We have our site, talksober.com/help, where you can get that. But don't go through life trying to define all these things. You see, in life, there's all these books and there's all these experts that are experts on words, right? We look at this, and what is depression? Depression is a word. That's all it is. Anxiety is a word. Alcoholism is a word. These are words that we use to define patterns. And throughout life, we have these patterns. And these patterns say, well, if you feel sad more than 3 times a week, if you feel gloomy, if you, right, then you are depressed. If you are full of yourself, then you're a narcissist. If you can't stop drinking, then you're an alcoholic. And throughout life, we go through these things and we give these titles and we give meaning to these words, right? And we have this society built around this stuff. And when you get into this and you get into alcoholism and you get into this struggle, it just goes crazy, right? And in the mind of a high-functioning alcoholic, these are dangerous things because you're almost too smart for your own good, or too much thinking for your own good. I don't know if smart would be the accurate way to define me, but you're almost doing too much thinking for your own good, right? And being able to name something is different from being able to sit with it and go through it. And so there I was throughout life. In 2013, I was going through therapy. I had gotten an office, and I decided that my problems were going to be solved by getting an office outside and getting employees and really getting down to work and being able to do stuff and being away from my family for a while, because it seemed like a good thing to do, right? Me and my wife were fighting because of my drinking, and so it seemed like it was going to be a good thing to do. And all the while, I never really put 2 and 2 together that alcohol was causing these problems, right? Up until then, everything seemed to be okay. But when you added alcohol into the mix, it made things 100 times worse, because now, on top of this, not only do I get depressed just because I kind of always have, but now I'm introducing a depressant into my life, making me depressed, which makes me have to define these things, which makes me have to figure out what's wrong with me. And I'm going through life trying to figure out what the fuck is wrong with me? What is wrong with me? What is going on? And I never really stopped to put 2 and 2 together to say, maybe, just maybe, the alcohol that I think is solving my anxiety or helping with my anxiety, helping with my depression, helping me get work done, maybe the only reason it's helping is because it itself is causing it, right? And to give you a little glimpse inside the mind of a functioning alcoholic, or a high-functioning alcoholic, as it were, we really have to look at what the thought circuits are like, right? What is the thought loop like? Because throughout life, we go through thoughts, we go through everything, and we have these loops of thinking, right? You have certain things, like let's say you get a flat tire on the road, right? You have a loop of thinking that says, well, I'm going to call this person, I'm going to get this help, I got my AAA card, I'm going to go do this, I'm going to go do that, right? And you go through it, right? Or a problem at work, boom, we have this thought loop. Or depression, I have this thought loop, right? And there's 2 things that we look at. One thing is the working of the mind. How does your mind work, right? How do the loops get created? They get created by certain things, and what is the path they take? And then another thing we have is what's called content of mind. Okay, content of mind is what you are thinking about in the words. Working of mind is the way that your mind thinks about these things, right? So you could have content, okay? You could have content that says, my car broke down. Okay, that's the content. Now, you take a person with a working of mind that goes to depressive thoughts, and they're going to say, my car broke down, I can't get to work, I'm probably going to lose my job, everything's going to be terrible, I'm going to have to move back in with my parents and live a miserable life, life sucks. Okay, that's a person with the working of mind that works depression, no matter what the content is, car break, job fail, girlfriend breakup, whatever. No matter what the content is, the loop is going to go through that cycle. Okay, now you take that same thing, car broke down, to a guy with, positive thinking or whatever you want to call it. I hate to use that because it's kind of like a fluffy term. But you take that same situation, the same content of mind, and you give it to someone with a different working of mind, and they're going to be perfectly fine. Now you see what alcohol does for the high-functioning alcoholic is it affects the working of your mind. So if you're like me, where sometimes you go into depressive thoughts, the alcohol is going to affect the loop. So it doesn't matter what the content is, right? But the problem with the high-functioning alcoholic is he's so focused on the content. It's about what happened at work. It's about this guy. It's about this stuff. But we're not realizing that the drink is affecting the working of the mind, so it doesn't matter what's coming in. It doesn't matter what happens in your life because the alcohol has owned you. And so there I was going through this in 2013. I had my office, right? And there I am in my office. I got employees and everything. And I'm a basket case, right? I do webinars. I do live trainings. After my webinars, I am in my office. It's got a glass door so everyone can see. There's only 2 people, but, we'll call it everyone. And there I am. I'm like weeping about something, like a little 5-year-old just draining tears, and I can't understand why I'm depressed. I can't understand why this stuff. And the content comes up because my brain feels this way, and now it's like, okay, we got to come up with content to justify this. I'm crying because of this. I'm crying because of this. I'm crying because of that, right? And all these things come up from my past, and I start to relive these things, and everything starts to go crazy. So they're feedbacking each other. Right? I have this working of mind that says I'm sad. I have this content of mind that says here's what you're sad about. The working of the mind says, wow, yeah, you really should be sad about that. And everything just goes like all hell breaks loose. And I can't describe to you what it is like unless you've been there. And perhaps you're there now. Perhaps you understand what it's like to be a functioning alcoholic, to have these thoughts, to not know what the hell is wrong with you, what's going on. But I can tell you right now, nothing is wrong with you, right? You are having a normal reaction to introducing alcohol into your body. That is what alcohol does. It depresses things, it numbs things, it stops things, and it affects the working of your mind. That's why you can't go drive a car when you have alcohol, because the working of your mind is shut off, right? I mean, think about this for a minute. So here you are, right? Thousands of times you could drive on autopilot, right? How many times have you driven home from somewhere only to forget how the drive was? You don't remember turning here, turning there, doing this, doing that, putting your blinker on, going left on Magnolia, going east on whatever. You don't remember. You probably don't even remember filling it with gas because you were doing that on autopilot. So here is a mind that's so brilliant and so able to do things, and you introduce alcohol and it can't even do it on purpose. You can't even purposely drive down the road, right? You think you can, but it doesn't work too well, and you should never drive drunk. But at any rate, it's affecting the working of your mind. So you might be sitting there saying, well, Marcus, why do I think this way? Why do I have depression? Why do I have this stuff? Well, the reason you have it is because you are introducing something into your system. And now your body has gotten to the point, and your mind has gotten to the point, where it's an obsession of the mind. Your mind is obsessed with it because you say, well, I need alcohol, because your body believes it. And then the content of mind says, well, yeah, you need alcohol to get this done. You need alcohol to do this. You need alcohol to shut those thoughts up. You need alcohol to feel better. And the working of your mind keeps fueling it and fueling it and fueling it because your body thinks you need it. And you have an obsession of your mind and a compulsion of your body to go get it. Right? So not only do you have chemical dependency and chemical addiction, but you also have this working of the mind and this obsession of your mind. Right? So I can't even describe to you what it is like to live in alcoholic hell. right? Literally, that's what it is. If you want to experience this stuff and understand what um, it's like a self-made prison that you made, but you think was made for you, that you can't get out of, right? No matter what, you can't get out of it. And the only thing you know how to do is keep drinking. That's the only thing you know how to do. And I don't know what it takes for someone to snap out of it. I don't know what it takes for someone to understand the way out. And we're going to explore that on this channel. If you like these videos, subscribe to. I think we're back. It says disconnected or something. Right? If you guys can hear me, type something in the box, the little chat box there, and let me know. But I can't describe to you what that was like. It was literally like a living hell. Right? Everything looks okay on the outside. Everything seems okay. And the problem of stopping drinking seems so simple and so easy, but you can't do it. And you can't do it because your mind has been disrupted by alcohol, right? You think mental illness, all this stuff, this is causing it, right? There's a reason they call it alcoholic and insanity, and that's because alcohol is causing the insanity, right? So I don't know if you can relate to this or not. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. But the fact of the matter is so many people are hung up on the issues. So many people are hung up on the words. What is an alcoholic? What is depression? Do I have depression? Do I have alcoholism? Do I have insanity? Do I have OCD? Do I have anxiety? Right? What's happening is you have one thing, and that one thing is you're an alcoholic, and you can't stop drinking. And this alcohol is causing the mental illness. This alcohol is causing the insanity. And it's time to stop the insanity. And if you can't stop it on your own, you got to get help. Go to talksober.com/help, and you can get all the stuff that we have for you on how to get help and everything like that. Call a doctor, go to the ER, do what you got to do, because this stuff is life and death. Unfortunately for me, it had to get to the point where it was death, pretty much, right? I had planned to end my life one day, and I was taken to a mental institute, exactly where I belonged, right? When you drink, this is exactly where you belong, because it's going to affect the working of your mind. And when you look at crazy people and people that have struggles and mental illness and things like that, it's all about the working of their mind. It's the way their mind works. It's not the content. Right? They could sit there in the corner and talk about giraffes all day. That's content. That's fine. Another guy could sit in the corner and talk about hippos all day. Right? That's content. That's fine. But what's really affecting is the working of the mind, the inability to stop these things. And that's what he talks about in this Asylum book, is the inability to stop. Right? He has this epiphany, and this is kind of the same thing I had when I was in the mental ward for the day that I was in. Because I thought I didn't belong there, right? And then I sat there and I looked at people and I was like, holy cow, I do belong here. Why do I belong here? Because I lost the ability to stop these things. I lost the control, right? So where someone else could go through, like we all have these thoughts. We all get anxious. We all have these thoughts. The person with the problem is the one who loses control over them, right? Same with alcohol. Lots of people drink. Now, it's bad for you whether you can control it or not, but I lost the control. I lost the ability to stop when I wanted. I lost the ability to say no even when I didn't want to drink. Right? I had so much that it just started to taste like metal. Right? It tasted like a metal bar, like the metallic taste. It's all. It was nothing. I didn't even enjoy it. My favorite kinds. I'd pay $9 for this fancy bottle of beer, and I didn't even enjoy it because it tasted like metal, because I had to have it. Right? And it got to the point where I was drinking vodka, which I absolutely hate. Tastes like metal anyway. And I drank it just because, it was there. And that's the danger, is when you can't control your thoughts, when you can't control your anxiety. And the paradox of this whole thing is the control comes in letting go. Right? The control comes in letting go. The control comes in saying, well, here we are. This is what I have to deal with. How am I going to deal with it? Here we are. I have this alcohol problem. How do I deal with it? Right? Go to talksober.com/help. Here we are. I have this OCD, or this anxiety problem. Right? How are we going to deal with it? We deal with it by not fighting it. We deal with it by accepting and saying, well, yeah, a chemical has beat me. Okay, and you can look at it several different ways. You could say, well, I'm a functioning alcoholic and I'm a weakling because I can't stop drinking, or I'm not going to admit I'm an alcoholic because it means this. Again, it's all just words. It's all just words used to define certain things, but the fact of the matter is how is it working in your life? How is it working for you, right? Is it causing problems? Is it causing you to go crazy as it caused me to go crazy? Right? What are you going to do to make it happen? Because in life, there's a lot of times where we go through things and we wait for motivation to kick in, right? We wait for a feeling. When I feel like getting sober, when I really feel like it's going to work, then I'll get help. No, 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 no. The fact of the matter is if you're having problems right now, don't wait till it gets too late because you might not be able to get help, right? The fact of the matter is when you get up and you do something, then your situation starts to change. So whether you get up and you go to rehab, whether you get up and you start reading things, whether you get up and you go get help at the doctor, whatever it is, right? Very recommended that you go to a doctor. I'm not a doctor. Go to a real doctor, get some help. Um, but the fact of the matter is when we let go and we say, this is what we have, right? This is how it is, right? When I sit here and I say, well, now that I know, right, one of the most freeing things for me in life was understanding the difference between content of mind and working of mind. Because now that I understand the way that the working of mind goes, right, I could be there, I could lay in bed, or the other day I had a nap and I woke up with terrible thoughts, right, and it came up and I was like, okay, well, yeah, I could do these things, and then I could have easily started the loop of, well, that's bad, I'm guilty, I'm terrible, go do this, fix it, whatever, fight it. But instead I said, well, that's just the working of my mind. That's what happened. I probably had too much coffee. I fell asleep in the middle of the day. I always feel like crap when I wake up after falling asleep in the middle of the day. Boom, my mind is working a different way. And right now you look at it and it's like, okay, the working of your mind is not the same as the content. So the content I had didn't matter, right? It's the working. And this stuff starts to free you because then you say, well, it's not always about the content. It's about the working. And when you introduce alcohol into the equation, the working is going to work towards insanity, and it's going to work towards bad things, right? Bad thoughts, bad ideas, bad self-image. And a lot of alcoholics talk about hating themselves. And I talked earlier about how I hated myself on one hand and liked myself on the other hand. What gives? Well, can you hold these two things in your mind at the same time? Can you both love and hate yourself at the same time? Yeah, I think you can. But you can also accept yourself and say, what if the part of me that I don't like is affected because I am damaging the working of my mind? What if I'm damaging this? What if it's not real? What if when I shut off the alcohol, everything starts to get back to normal? And that's exactly what happens. And that's what happened to me the day I went into um, the mental ward, right? I went in there and something shocked me. It said, this is where I belong. This is where I need to be. And so I went to a rehab after that. I stayed clean for 30 days. You could listen more about the rehab stories and everything like that on my channel. Um, and then I started the journey of a new life, right? Because now it's like, okay, now that I understand these things, now that I know what's going on, and now that I know that there's nothing wrong with me, it's just naturally what happens, then it was okay to get help, right? It's like if you were to take someone and deprive them of a vitamin, right? In the old days, people would get on boats and they'd come to America and all kinds of things, and they get these weird diseases. And they'd be like, man, we got this scurvy. What's wrong with us? We got scurvy. Must be something on the boat. And it's like, no, you just didn't have any oranges and you didn't have vitamin C or whatever it was, and that's why you got that, right? Alcohol is doing the same thing. It's depriving you of certain things. It's affecting the way that your mind works, right? And it's not really something you could control other than by not drinking, right? When you stop introducing this into your body, the insanity starts to go away and you start to think rational thoughts. And that's what this is all about. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it helped you see what the mind of a functioning alcoholic looks like. And I hope it helps you understand that you're not alone, right? The anxiety, the insanity, the inability to sit still, the inability to think or go outside or deal with anything in life, right? You might feel like you're weak and powerless and everything like that, and you can't do anything, right? And that's normal. That's what they go through. That's what we go through. And we're in it together. So subscribe to my channel. Go to talksober.com. Get some more videos. Write me. Put your comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I hope this wasn't just 40 minutes of rambling like it felt like it was to me. Our next video is going to be a book review of Asylum by William Seabrook, and good stuff there. So let's all stay sober one day at a time. Let's help each other out. Let's talk this thing out and understand the difference between the content of your mind and the working of your mind. Right? Really good stuff. Thanks again. I'm Marcus from TalkSober.com. Make sure you subscribe to my channel. Every Friday at 11 a.m. we have these live training thingies. And next week we'll pick a topic. So put your comments below this video, and whatever topic you want us to cover, we'll go through. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.